Welcome to Ghost Storybook, the best collection of true ghost stories. Today's story is In the Mouth of Shadow. After Shannon, a psychic medium, and I met in 2001, we moved into a small cottage that was part of an old complex that had two other small cottages, about 14 small apartments, and one two-story farmhouse. The cottages were originally built back in the early 1900s as vacation cottages and were used by silent film stars and crews such as Charlie Chaplin. Only 3 cottages survive to this day. The house was built sometime in the 20s or 30s, and the apartments after World War II. Niles, which is now part of Fremont, was the original Hollywood before the studios moved from Northern California to Southern California. The cottage sat right at the mouth of Niles Canyon, haunted Niles Canyon. Our cottage was no bigger than 150 to 200 square feet. It had no sink in the bathroom and no insulation or air conditioning, so it was hot in the summer, and the old single-pane windows produced water condensation when it rained in the winter. It also had very little storage space and a small kitchenette, but it was affordable, and we loved it. It was our little love shack. Oh, it was also extremely haunted. Not just our cottage, but the whole property, roughly about 2 acres. As a psychic medium, Shannon detected spirits all over the property. She did, however, perform a protection spell on our cottage, so we would not be haunted, except for a small ghost cat that occasionally liked to run around at night. Cats never listen anyway. Shannon and I loved the property, except for one spirit, a cranky old man in the attic of the main house, who used to yell and scream from the attic window at Shannon to stay away from my house. But most of the other spirits were friendly. One was a man in a baseball uniform, who was always hiding behind the same bush. One was a young boy, always underneath an apple tree. There was something mysterious always lurking outside one of our windows in the front room, but Shannon never could sense what that energy was about. Across the small field behind the back of our cottage, there was something dark, always staring at our bedroom window from underneath an elevated and abandoned tool shed or something, but only at night. It was like it knew Shannon could sense it, but during the daytime, the dark energy was gone. Whatever it was the only energy Shannon identified as evil. Shannon also sensed that the old film crews and actors' energies were still prevalent on the property, but only in a general way, nothing really specific. Off-property, Shannon sensed massive amounts of energy within Niles Canyon, which we rarely walked into. But during our first walk along Alameda Creek, which flows out of Niles Canyon, Shannon saw the spirit body of a young girl who had drowned. We were under the overpass for Mission Boulevard when she saw a brunette in a white flowing dress just underneath the surface of the water. We were only about 100 feet from the property where our rental cottage was. The spirit body just floated there like a physical body, but did not move with the flow of water downstream, nor did she try to communicate with Shannon. Could this have been the famous White Witch of Niles Canyon? Who knows? Because we lived right at the mouth of Niles Canyon, it was usually windy, but the wind wasn't always natural. Sometimes we would get what Shannon called evil winds. These were winds that carried the souls of the dead. They were very rare and were not generated by the canyon, but instead by restless spirits roaming over the earth. My last story about our love shack is the creepiest. Shannon also sensed that there were other spirits haunting some of the other apartments, which the other non-psychic medium renters verified with plenty of ghost stories about spooky and weird happenings. But the one I'm going to tell you made all of our blood run cold. Shannon and I pulled into our driveway late one night, where I had to stop to let Shannon out so she can open the car door, because the driveways were so small. Anyway, she gets out of the car and immediately runs to the far side of the neighbor's cottage yelling something. I couldn't see her either because there were now 2 cottages between us, so I immediately park my car and run over to our neighbor's driveway where Shannon is standing and hurriedly asked, "What happened?" Shannon tells me she saw a shadow person staring at her. She said it was up against the house and moved along the wall from the front to the side where the driveway was, and then it disappeared. She said it had no defining facial features except for its eyes. She said the eyes were dark, bottomless, and empty. Her story really creeped me out, but we had a good laugh over it because of the way she ran after it. Shannon has never run towards a shadow person like that before. Anyway, like I said, we were having a good chuckle when our neighbor pulled up wondering why we were standing in his driveway. So we told him what we had just experienced, and the look on his face quickly turned to one of shock. He told us about a week ago he had pulled into his driveway late at night, and out of the corner of his eye, he caught something looking through his passenger side window at him. He quickly turned to see the exact same shadow person Shannon had just described. His eyes shifted away for a moment in shock, but when he refocused on his passenger window, the shadow person was gone. He said he got out and looked all around but could not see or hear anyone. He said he would have knocked on our door to ask Shannon about it, but we were gone that evening. Our little love shack was old, small, and had a few modern conveniences, but we loved that place, ghosts and all. Thank you for listening. Subscribe us for more stories.